Well, hello, EKN Nation. Welcome to another edition of our Face2Face. My name's Rob Howden, joined as always by David Cole. Episode number 76 of the show. It is November the 28th, 2023. We've essentially rested up now from the Super Nationals. I got through a pseudo-American Thanksgiving because I'm here in Canada, but so I had a Friendsgiving on Saturday. David was sick the entire time, so he's just bouncing back right now. But again, we're looking forward to what's happening in 2024. A lot of great things, of course, have been hitting the airwaves, David. We've seen schedules finally coming out. I know USPKS is going to be dropping their actual tracks pretty soon here. More information coming out of the Challenge of the Americas out west as well. Lots going on here right now as we kind of roll into the month of December.
Yeah, apologize for my voice. I'm about 95% better from where I was on Wednesday and Thursday. But yeah, a lot of details coming out. We're going to have Andy Staesman actually on Thursday to discuss the Challenge of the Americas. So watch for that face-to-face coming up 8 p.m. Eastern. So that one will be a little bit later because Andy loves the late evening primetime slots. So we'll put him in there before us East Coasters go to bed after that show. But yeah, so a lot going on. And again, we're just almost into the month of December. What does that mean? That means, okay, we get a week or two to chill out before we start thinking about 2024.
Yeah, 100%. I know that obviously the Rotax Grand Finals happening as well
Yes.
in Bahrain. So of course, we'll be covering that from here. We won't be trackside for that, but we'll be covering that. So you look for coverage on EKN for that as well. So again, lots happening. But of course, every year the new year starts in the old year. That's kind of a karting thing we've always had, right? The 2024 season really starts at Daytona with WKA KartWeek. And so good opportunity for us to talk to one of the guys. And there's a lot of storylines here that we're going to hit on today. But of course, Margay has been a big part of Daytona KartWeek for probably since its very inception. It's become a huge part of it these days with the Ignite program as well. So Keith Freber, one of our good friends, joining us here. We'll bring Keith on in to say hello. Keith, we're going to talk a lot about some anniversaries with your organization, but I just realized this. I think you and I've known each other for 25 years now. I think it was 1997 when I started with National Kart News when I first kind of met you, maybe 96, 97. So it's actually been over 25 years now. So it's been a long time.
I was thinking about that the other day, and it has been a long time. And it's kind of frightening to think about that you and I are sort of like, I don't know, do we qualify as like elder statesmen yet? Or
yeah. I'll nominate both of you.
I mean, we had a lot of fun back in the day there, and we still do, the few times that we are able to get together. But man, back then we were young and had a lot more energy than we do now, I think.
Yeah, now we're old, tired, and cynical. It's perfect.
Yeah, right. And a little bit bitter too. So,
I'll say this: you can tell if you're an elder statesman if you ever drove a go-kart that didn't have bodywork on it to a certain extent. Not even a nose. Right?
Yeah, no, true. I've got a kart right in here in the showroom that was my very first kart when I was 10 years old. It was a Panther X Junior in 1978 with a Mac 49 on it, and nobody knew what bodywork was.
That's exactly right. David, you did some no bodywork racing.
My first kart was a 79 Bug, so I was born in 79, so the kart was as old as I was, but it had no bodywork. It did have the number panels on it, and it did have that small little fairing. So I think as they got closer into the 80s, they had that small little fairing over the steering column, correct?
I like the fairings.
Yeah. So I mean, my first enduro kart as well. No bodywork. Your feet were just hanging out there, and you had 2 fuel tanks on either side of you, and that was it.
So again, as always, folks, with our face-to-face shows, they are interactive. So if something comes up and you have a comment you want to make, ask a question for Keith, whatever it may be, and then lots to talk about here for Margay. One of the big things we'll get to later on is that 2024 is the 60th anniversary, the 60th year that this company has been in business. It's an iconic brand. In American karting, no doubt about that. They've reinvented themselves a couple of times. The Ignite program we know has been such a huge success and so big for the sport. But first and foremost, we'll start with this. Keith, obviously, we're going to get into Daytona. That's obviously going to be the meat of what we talk about to a certain extent. But you're at the shop right now, and I know where you are. I've been to the shop before in St. Louis. You guys got an open house coming this weekend. Give us a scoop on what's happening with the open house.
Well, this is something that we started back in 2015, I believe, and it's been really successful. It's kind of the time of the year back in the Midwest where there's not a lot of racing going on, but people still are, wanting to get ready for next year and kind of getting wound up and missing the track and wanting to stay involved with karting. And so we originally started doing this on Small Business Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And we opened the shop up, fire up the grill and get some brats going and have some nice cold beer that's made locally, and invited everybody in, and sold a lot of go-karts, sold a lot of equipment, sold a lot of tires, and just sold a lot of stuff, because it's that time of year where we've got team carts, we've got all kinds of things that we've used all year that we need to move. And it's a great opportunity for new people to get into the sport at a decent price. It's a great opportunity for existing karters to pick up a new or used kart for next year, to get a deal on tires, to get a deal on sniper laser alignment equipment, whatever it may be. We've got a lot of stuff here that needs to head out the door and get back on track. So great opportunity for people to come on down. We're open from 9 to 2 on Saturday here at our St. Louis location. If you're anywhere in the Midwest, come on down. We're going to give you an awesome bratwurst or Italian sausage. Again, cold beer. Mom's chocolate chip cookies. That's the best thing. Mom's chocolate chip cookies will be readily available. And it's just a great time to catch up with a lot of people. There's a lot of social activity. A lot of people just hadn't seen each other in a while. So yeah, it's a fun day all the way around, and the weather looks like it's going to be nice.
We know obviously you'll be there. I think one of the things that's interesting, I know you've done this before, and it was the same thing when I used to go to like the KMI Kart Expo, right? It's the opportunity to kind of meet some of the key people. You stop by your booth and you'd have your kind of primary drivers would be there, guys that help build the karts. I know you'll be there, but are there other, let's say, preeminent Margay guys that are going to be there throughout the day?
Yeah, that's a great point. And you bring up KMI. That was always a fun show, and that was a great excuse to see a lot of people and consume a lot of beverages and have a really big time. So I do miss that era. But so a lot of our young drivers from the Midwest will be here. Evan Stommer, Jaden Beckman, Zach Buchanan, who's taking on more and more of a role here at Margay. His role continues to grow every day. He does a great job for us. Zach will be here. Ken Williams, a veteran karter that seems to win whatever he gets into. Ken has been working with us here at the company for, I think, 6 years now, and he does a great job. Tons and tons of knowledge with Ken. Brandon Moore, another one of our employees, will be here, of course. Just a ton of local families. A lot of our Gateway Kartplex families will be here. Keith Scharf will be around from Gateway Kartplex. Just lots of people. Just come on by, hang out. You don't have to buy anything. Come by, have a brat and a beer or soda or whatever, and just shoot the breeze with everyone.
Any of those old guys, like the two brothers that typically have been racing Margays in the past?
The two brothers. the old guy. Well, I don't know. Which ones are you talking about?
There's a lot that I could probably talk about, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. We've got a lot of old guys after being around for 50 years. So
I was thinking the Mr. Daytona and his little brother.
Mr. Daytona and Mr. Deltona.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So Randy Folks is, of course, Mr. Daytona.
Yep.
And then Rick Folks came up with a great moniker for himself there a couple of years ago. We were at some awards thing, and somebody said, "Well, who are you?" And his usual response is Randy's brother.
Yeah.
But he came up with Mr. Deltona. Deltona is a smaller town up the road from Daytona.
That's perfect.
And so Randy is Mr. Daytona and Rick is Mr. Deltona.
It was good to see Randy. He came out to the CKNA Grand Nationals. It was good to see him trackside there. That was awesome.
Great guys. Great family.
So 9 till 2 on Saturday, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. 9 till 2 on Saturday. Margay open house. Stop by, if even just to get a brat and a cold beer and chat with the crew from Margay. I know there's lots of great stuff there as well. If you're looking to get a new go-kart, perfect. Absolutely. Let's roll it now to the start of 2024. So you guys have been front and center. The Margay name has been attached to WKA KartWeek for many, many years. Let's talk about this year, December 28th to the 30th. It's right between Christmas and New Year's. It's been kind of a staple in karting for so many years now. Let's talk about the Dash at Daytona. How has the Margay Ignite program kind of worked its way? How will it set up this year to be part of WKA?
Well, one of the things that's really important to note is WKA has their race format that they've announced for the sprint race, the old, what used to be the Manufacturers Cup Series. Yep. But on the sprint track there in the infield, they've got a single final. So you've got a day of practice in qualifying, then you've got a day of heat races, and then the final day is your pre-final and final. So every class has a single final. we didn't feel like that worked really well for our customer base and for our racers, for our Ignite karters. So we worked with WKA to change it up just a little bit. WKA was very accommodating. They've been just fantastic to work with on this program. But what we're going to do is have 2 finals, much like we've done in the past down there. So day 1, the 28th, will be just like everybody else. We'll have 3 rounds of practice and a qualifying session. Day 2 will be a warm-up, a pre-final, and final 1 for Ignite. And day 3 will be a warm-up, pre-final, and final 2 for Ignite. So we're going to have 2 Ignite winners down there in Ignite Senior. And the day 2 grid is going to be set by your fastest race lap in final 1. So even if you had, if you were quick but got crashed out or had some misfortune or something and didn't have a good finishing result, you still have the opportunity to start up front in final 2. So
what are the categories? Is it just the senior class?
It's just Ignite Senior this year on the sprint track. The nice thing about having the 2 finals is if you haven't been to Daytona before and you want to experience the big track, you can race on the sprint track for day 1. You can compete in final 1 on day 1. You can win, you can place wherever. And then on day 2, on race day 2, you can go over to the big track and you can run the full Daytona International Speedway road course.
Nice.
In some of the road race classes, which we're going to, over there, we do have Ignite Senior, Ignite Masters, and Ignite Heavy. So 3 different classes on the road race side. I know in the past, when we've done this, we had a lot of people that would sort of transition from the sprint side over to the road race side at the end of race day 1. So, you can go and you can race on both different venues, which is super cool.
I saw a couple of big names coming back out to run Ignite. Is that still a locked and loaded deal? It is locked and loaded. And again, that's thanks to Zach Buchanan, who did all the legwork on that. But the Taylor brothers from IMSA fame will be racing with us for the 2nd year in a row. And they were quick last year. Yeah, they were.
I mean, they were super quick. Jordan and Ricky, they really put on a good show. They were all business, but they were fun to be around. They couldn't have been nicer to hang out in the tent with, very accommodating. And those guys, man, they just get it done on the track. There's a reason they've won the 24 Hours of Daytona. There's a reason they race at Le Mans. There's a reason that Acura or whoever pays them a whole lot of money to drive race cars.
Well, listen, you don't have to go back that far, a little bit far, but when they were top like JICA drivers back in their day, right before they moved to cars.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember having a conversation with their father on the grid on the road race side when both of the kids were running JICA or some junior class, and I had a brief conversation with Wayne about the kids moving up to the next level. That seems like a long time ago.
It's probably around 2006, 2007, because that's when I started covering for EKN, and they were in the Stars of Karting JICA back with Connor Daly when he was running that, and so they've all kind of grown up and moved up the motorsports ranks there. But I mean, the one thing they don't have is a Daytona win in kart racing, I don't believe, and they haven't won in the Ignite program yet. But there's a lot of good names that have won at Daytona in the Ignite program. Talking back when you guys first started was 2017. It was Zach Veach and Gabby Chavez picking up victories there, and then a number of other drivers and karters that have come on to win.
Well, Santino won on the big track a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So just the names that you mentioned, Gabby Chavez, Zach Veach, Santino Ferrucci, all of those guys have won at Daytona in Ignite karts. To me, that's super cool. So I can't pull for anybody, any one driver, but I wouldn't be real disappointed to see either one of the Taylors win down there, because that would be super cool as well.
And what an opportunity for drivers, Ignite drivers, to get, go head to head against these 2 guys who are legitimate superstars in sports car racing. Yeah.
And again, they couldn't have been, they were just go-karters. They weren't big into superstar drivers. They were just go-karters out having fun. And they're actually bringing a couple of their buddies. They're going to race with them as well. It's a real neat atmosphere. And, we're very fortunate. I always say this, because I think we sort of take it for granted after doing it for 50 years down there. But we're very fortunate that we're able to go race at Daytona International Speedway. You've got the dirt race going on, you've got the road race going on, you've got the sprint race going on. It really is Kart Week in Daytona. And it doesn't really get much bigger than that, you know? I mean, it's just, you know, for somebody that hasn't done it, it's hard to explain the feeling that you get the first time that you drive through the tunnel and come up on the inside of the speedway. And I know I've said this before, but I'm thinking about it right now and I get goosebumps. I still get goosebumps. This will be my 42nd year in a row racing down there. And I literally have goosebumps just thinking about coming to the place.
So that's a good. That was one of my questions. So we're confirmed you're laying down again. You're gonna do a little racing there.
Yeah, the crew up in Springfield, Illinois, the RRR racing crew, along with Doug Canham, they take really good care of me. I just kind of show up and do what they tell me to do,
and win
very well.
And win.
Well, it's been a couple of years.
How many times have you won there?
I think 23 or 27. I don't know. There's some stuff up there.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a little hardware up there for sure, right? That's amazing.
But I'm nowhere close to Mr. Daytona or Mr. Deltona. So I aspire to that, but hopefully I can just keep my streak going for a few more years and maybe get to 50 years in a row myself. You know.
Here's a question, because I know that we talked before we came on about, you know, everybody's waiting to enter. That's just the thing nowadays. Everybody waits to get entered. Do you guys still have? I don't know. You guys do the arrive and drive. One of the big things about the Ignite program, not only is it the spec program where you're driving the same equipment as everybody. That's why David and I love when we get opportunities to drive in the Ignite races. But the arrive and drive that you guys do is so big for a lot of drivers that maybe come from out of town or you know, from the other coast. Do you guys still have room in terms of arrive and drive opportunities still for Daytona?
We do, and I'm glad you brought that up. Last year we had a father and son from Portland, Oregon, that flew in.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, Skitchy Barnes, of course, always comes in from Bermuda. We've had drivers from Texas, Mexico. I mean, we've literally had drivers from all over the country and even out of the country. So we do have spots available. We can kind of do it any way you want. If you own your own Ignite cart, we can haul it down there and take care of it for you. If you don't own your Ignite cart or your own Ignite cart, we can do a full turnkey arrive and drive package for you where we supply everything, including a mechanic. It's literally arrive and drive. You guys have done the program before.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Show up, bring your safety gear. We've got a cart there waiting for you, ready to go. We've got help. We've got a really great team of people that makes it super easy. And again, you're just like a rock star. You know, you're down there racing at Daytona. You've got your cart. You've got your name above your pit stall and everything. And everybody is a superstar, you know?
Yeah, it's fantastic. No doubt about that. It is awesome. I've had, obviously I did it in Indianapolis. It was great.
Yeah, I just did it at Rock Island. I did 3 classes all in 2 days. It was a lot of work, but you guys kept everything rolling. We got quicker and quicker every session. That's all you ever hope for. And I didn't hit a wall, and it was a great weekend.
Good. So Daytona's coming, folks. Again, if you have any information, you can contact the guys at Margay if you want to be part of Daytona and the Dash at Daytona for the Ignite program. You can do, as again, just the sprint track, or you can do the road track as well. Now that they've moved the schedule around a little bit, so great opportunity to kind of take in a couple of disciplines. But one interesting thing is I saw somebody post a little deal here. Keith Warren. Let me see if I can get down to Keith Warren here. He says, is that a VLR on the Ignite chassis behind Keith? And we talked about this in an earlier show. Yes, I believe that's a VL. Okay, can we get an update now? Where are we right now on the Ignite 100? We talked about that evolution out of the Ignite Briggs. You know, and here it is. You guys you've had it on track this year.
We've had it on track. We ran it the second half of the season here at Worldwide Technology Raceway and Gateway Kartplex. It went really, really well. And I mean, for a little background on it, you know, we've been running the Ignite program now for almost 10 years. And we've had a lot of karters that have been in this program with us for quite a while. And the Briggs 206 is just an awesome package. I mean, I talk about being lucky, being able to race at Daytona. Every time I see Dan Roche from Briggs, I tell him, thank you for providing karting with this unbelievable engine package. I mean, I think a lot of people take it for granted how good this is. I don't want to say it's saved karting, but it has really made a big impact on karting over the last 15 years now.
It has.
Maybe a little bit more. And you just take it for granted that you can take this engine, this Briggs engine, out of the box, put it on a kart, go out there, and you can be competitive with it And there's so little drama around the engine side of things in the Briggs 206 program. It's really the way to go for anybody getting started in the sport of karting. You absolutely need to start with a Briggs 206. I don't care what your story is. Everybody's got a story, right? I rode a 125 dirt bike when I was a kid, and that wasn't too fast.
Yeah.
Okay, trust me. Start here, and then you can go do your 125 shifter kart thing later, and you're going to be so much better off, and you're going to have so much more fun if you master all of the fundamental skills in a Briggs 206. And you're going to have a whole lot of fun racing your buddies, because maybe you're not going 150 miles an hour, but everybody on track is essentially going the same speed. And to me, the fun has always been the wheel-to-wheel racing and the back and forth rather than outright top speed. So the racing is terrific. The parity with the engines is amazing. They do such a good job. And I was lucky enough to tour the factory this past summer and see how they do it. They've got it dialed in. They really are super focused on quality. They do, and it shows. I mean, we have zero issues with those engines. So I can't say enough about the Briggs program. But for the drivers that maybe want to move on, maybe want to, are thinking, there's a lot of young drivers that want to move into cars. There's a lot of old drivers that want to move into cars. And we've got examples of both. But the step from a Briggs powered kart to, a USF junior car or any sort of GT4 type of car, anything like that, it's a big jump. It's a really big jump. And I think we do a disservice to our drivers thinking that they can make that step. There really needs to be that intermediate step where you go from a Briggs 206 powered kart into a higher horsepower two-stroke kart that just narrows the gap, so it's not such a big jump when you move into the cars.
Agreed. Yep.
And SCUSA, STARS, definitely USPKS. All three of those programs offer, I always talk about the pyramid in karting. Those three programs are at the tip of the pyramid, and they do a really good job at developing young drivers that are going to move on into cars. It's the tip of the pyramid. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. It's very competitive. It's really hard. It's supposed to be all of those things. Yeah. The 206 program down here, though, forms the base of the pyramid.
Foundation.
It's the foundation of the pyramid. But I feel like karting's been a little light in the middle. You've got the tip and you've got the foundation. But we used to have a really strong regional program in the eastern half of the U.S., where you had the Midwest Sprint Series, the Great Lakes Sprint Series, the New Jersey Sprint Series. You had all of these different programs that were the bridge between local karting and national level karting. Most of those programs are gone now, with the exception of Route 66, which is still around and still doing very well. But there needs to be a bridge for the karters there. Again, to just jump from a 206 into a STARS program or a SCUSA or a USPKS program, that's a big jump too. And there's virtually no two-cycle racing anywhere in the Midwest anymore. You've got a few tracks that have, 100cc tag, or call it KA or VLR, whatever you want to call it, F100. There's some of that around, but the Yamaha program is totally gone. It doesn't exist anymore. There's no Yamaha karting anywhere. Yeah. And there's essentially no two-cycle racing. And I think that does our drivers a disservice, and I miss it, to be honest. I mean, I like two cycles. They're pretty sexy, really. And well,
I've done some of that. I do as much Briggs as I can, but I got a chance to run the Super Nats. I ran the Summer Nats this year, right? Get a chance to run the 100cc air cooled. It's fun. Like I had a Margay with a Formula Y in 1998. Back in the day. So, and Dave's done a lot of Yamaha racing. So then we had all this success, all the 1,000+ chassis that you guys built for the Ignite Briggs. Now people want to go faster, right? It happens. They want more speed, and people just want to go a bit faster sometimes. So tell us how things go, and what are the plans for the Ignite 100 for 2024?
Well, we put a lot of thought into it, and I feel like we've had a lot of success with the Ignite program for a lot of reasons. We put a lot of thought into that, and we really agonized over a lot of the details when we first introduced that program, and we worked really hard to maintain all of those details. over the years. And I think that's why the program is still so strong. So we put a lot of thought into this 100cc package. And originally we had thought about, well, it needs a different chassis. We're going to build a different chassis specifically for that. Thinking that we had to do that. And we started doing some testing and everything and had different drivers and different karts and evaluating different things. At the end of the day, we thought, well, this is silly. We've got well over 1,000 of these karts out there. Let's make it easy. Let's just put it on the exact same chassis as the Ignite 206, which is our Ignite K3 chassis. And let's run a little bit softer tire. With the 206, we run the Hoosier R80, which is a very hard tire, lasts almost all season, can last all season. But again, it sort of levels the playing field. So on the Ignite 100, we opted for the Hoosier R70, has a bit more grip, but not so much grip that you're totally gassed when you get out of the thing and your ribs are killing you when you go to work on Monday. We looked at doing that. We tested a lot with the Hoosier R60B, a softer tire. And, all the 15-year-olds that drove it thought it was super awesome on the soft tires. Yeah, this is awesome. That's really great. And then we put the old guys in it who make up a large percentage of our customer base and potential buyers for this. They drove it on the soft tires. Those guys would come in after 6 or 7 laps and just need oxygen, So I think we found a happy medium with the Hoosier R70. And we're essentially just mirroring our Ignite 206 program. The engine is actually sealed. It's the VLR 100 made by Vortex and their ROC program, which is owned by the OTK group. And I've been really impressed with the quality and the reliability of these engines. We've got a fair bit of time on them now and have been very happy with it, but they're actually sealed out of the box. And unlike the Briggs, which you can run for several years without rebuilding, and you can't rebuild the Briggs because the bottom end is sealed, we will, of course, rebuild these. We're not going to just start parking these in the corner of the garage.
Yeah.
But the key is it's a single source rebuilder, and it's going to be a what I call a blind program, where the engines are always going to come back to us. Then they go off to the shop that's rebuilding them. And that way, the people doing the work don't know whose engines they're working on, trying to keep it a little bit cleaner. And we're pretty close to having a maintenance schedule dialed in. And basically, if you follow, so all of the engines come with an hour meter on them, on our parts anyway. And if you follow the maintenance schedule, this is what your budget is going to look like for the year. This is what it's going to cost you to run this engine for the year. So it's the exact same chassis that we're running. So the tracks, the shops, the customers, you don't have to stock parts for 2 different karts. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. And I don't know, I'm certainly biased, but you can't see the whole kart over here, but it's a super sexy looking go-kart. Bright red chassis on this one, black decals, black bodywork, the VLR 100 with the seal on it there. It's the sound, we've had, so our last race over Gateway, we had 12 of these on track.
Wow, all right.
And the sound, Rob, you've been there, Dave, you've been there. You guys have been at big 2-cycle races, back in the direct drive days. Man, there's just nothing like it, It's pretty good. So, so the kart's available now. It's going to run next year, of course, at Gateway Kartplex in the Ignite program. It'll actually run in the Super Comp series at Gateway, which is on Sundays. We're also going to run Ignite 100 Senior and Junior in our Ignite Challenge series.
That was my question.
Next year, which may become a 6-race series, but with some doubleheader dates. We're still working on that. But that basically runs at tracks throughout the Midwest. And what we're also trying to do with the 100, one of the things that, as this program has grown and as people have stuck around, you get the Evan Stammers or the Trevor Eggemeyers or these guys that run up front all the time because they've been there for 5 or 6 years now. They're tough to beat. So you can buy the equipment, the same equipment as everybody else. What you can't buy is the experience. And we're trying to come up with a way to draw some of the experienced guys out of there so we can kind of keep the conveyor belt going. We want new people to come in, but we don't want them to get discouraged. I mean, there's a track here in the Midwest where there's a driver that has dominated this track for literally 25 years. I mean, he's been a great supporter of karting, and he does a lot of great things for the track, and he's a great club member there. But he's been racing there for 25 years, and new karters come in and they buy all this equipment, and they're like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to beat that guy. You're not.
You're going to struggle.
It's not going to happen, you know? So there's a lot of turnover at that track, I think, because people get in and they find out, you know, at best, I'm running for second, at best. And so we want to be cognizant of that. You know, we want to see new people come in, progress up through the field, and not get frustrated and maybe leave the sport because they can't beat the guy that's the 18-time track champion. That's one of the things we actually do at Gateway is if you win the track championship in Ignite Senior, you can't run the class next year for points.
Wow. Okay.
Because I don't want to see a 15-time track champion. I mean, I know the jackets are cool and everything, but it's not good for the sport. People tend to get discouraged and move on. So instead of forcing people out of the class, we thought we would kind of try the carrot and stick approach and give them a carrot so they can move up to something else and sort of draw them out of the class naturally and into Ignite 100.
Dave, do you want to bring that question that Todd Bolton came out? That was kind of interesting.
I was just going to say it because, you know, one of the earlier conversations we had, I think last year, was talking about the supply chain of just the sport as a general, and also what you guys were dealing with. How, you know, over the last year or so, how has that changed? Has it improved? Are you able to get product a lot easier and more quantity in order to keep up with the Ignite chassis building that you have been doing? And also when you're going to now start pushing out the Ignite 100, hopefully you're going to be selling a lot more chassis as well too.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really think we've turned the corner, not just us here at Margay, but I think the industry, and I think a lot of places too, have sort of turned the corner. A lot of industries have turned the corner. 2021 and 2022 were brutal. I mean, they were good. They were good for karting, and that karting was under the radar, under the COVID radar. All of the karting essentially kept going. You know, all of kart racing kept going, and we weren't really affected. And for us, once we got over the initial dip when COVID hit, we had 2 really good years. And I think it was the same really across all of karting. You know, everybody was pretty pleased. And this year things slowed down a little bit, but for sure the supply chain issues, at least in my opinion, I think are gone. Anymore, I think a lot of people worked really hard to build up their manufacturing capacity, and then things have leveled off. And now we're even in a bit of a position where at times we get things a lot quicker than we want them. You know, it's like we try to schedule things out and schedule deliveries, and all of a sudden this stuff just starts showing up. Like, oh, hold on here, you know. But it's been an interesting period. But I really think the whole industry has turned the corner, and I don't think we can use the supply chain issue as an excuse anymore. So. Yeah. Hopefully I don't have to, you know.
Yeah.
I just said I can't do that anymore. So I can't do that next spring.
Back to the Ignite 100. Is there a possibility of seeing it potentially at a Rock Island Grand Prix, at one of your, you know, an Ignite Major? Is that something, if there was it's obviously going to pick up momentum as it gets rolling, right, into a full season. Do you see that being something you might want to plug into a major event somewhere?
Well, of course, that depends on the promoters. But yeah, we would love to see that. And I think there's going to be merit for it, for sure. You know, we didn't really promote it. We haven't promoted it to this point. We wanted to have like a soft opening, so to speak, and kind of work out all the bugs and get some more experience. And we've done that, and we're very, very pleased with it. Rock Island would be great. Any of the other big events would be great. I mean, there's talk that we may have a big Ignite only event at Worldwide Technology Raceways later in the year. Hopefully that comes to fruition. Quincy being gone is a little bit of a bummer, the race in the park, but we're going to offer this package too to any track. We've got a complete rules package. It's plug and play. Here's the product. You order one part number from us. This is what comes in the box. You're not having to source parts from all over. We've got the rules package. It's just very straightforward. It's very simple. It's turnkey again. It's just a natural progression from our existing Ignite program. All
right. So, Dave, what do you got?
I was going to add, and you can run that package in a 100cc category at any local club as well too. Any club or regional program that offers 100cc junior, master, senior, whatever, they could, with the VLR engine, you could run this kart as long as you follow their entire rule package probably.
Yes. So this brings up a really interesting point. The Ignite kart is built as a spec kart, right? And a lot of our competitors will use that as a knock on the kart. Oh, well, that's a spec kart. You can't compete. Yes, you can run it in the regular 206 class, but it won't be competitive. Well, we've always sort of begged to differ, and we've always had results to show that too. So there was a big event out at Phoenix at PKRA Club about 3 weeks ago, the Super Showdown out there, same weekend as the Super Nationals. This was purely a 4-cycle event though, down in Phoenix. While you guys were up in Vegas doing your thing, a bunch of 4-cycle guys were having this shootout down in Phoenix, and we had a guy down there on an Ignite win Briggs 206 Senior.
Wow.
He beat the factory effort from several other teams, all these big efforts. Here's a guy on his 206 or on his Ignite 206, his spec kart that went out and got the job done. So, and that's not unusual to hear. I mean, it's a very forgiving kart to drive, very easy kart to set up. And as David mentioned, you can go run this in any class where they allow the VLR KA 100cc engine package. So I think it's going to be really good. The red, I just wish I could get a better shot at the red black on this. It looks so good.
Well, they have to go to the open house on Saturday.
That's exactly right. Yeah, somebody can take this home on Saturday. So package price on this kart, fully assembled with the VLR 100 engine, with the Hoosier tires. I mean, literally as it sets here, without the Micron, is $7,000. To me, that seems like a bargain anymore.
Yeah.
You look at any of the other European karts with a KA engine on it or whatever, you're going to be several $1,000s more than that.
Agreed.
You look at a KTM dirt bike, if you want to go motocross racing, you're $10,000 or $11,000 for one of those. It's crazy. So great value here, I think. It is more expensive than Briggs racing. It does require more maintenance. It does require more hands-on attention if you want to be competitive. But that's just the nature of the beast as you move up the ladder and move up the pyramid.
Speed costs money and time. It's so simple as that.
It does. But I think we've got a good package here that's found the right balance.
I like it. So let's cap this off. Obviously, we got a chance to talk about the open house that's coming this weekend. We talked about Daytona. We've talked about the Ignite 100. Kind of alluded to it at the start. We talked about it. This is an amazing year for you guys. And we talk about the sport, back in 1956, getting rolling with Art Ingles and everything happened over in Europe. But Margay's been around forever. And so 2024, Keith, you're obviously third generation. Let's talk about what it means. Number one, for 60 years in 24 for Margay Racing. And then you, 15 years at the helm yourself. A milestone for you at 15. You've been involved a lot longer than that. But then to have this iconic name, this family business for 60 years, that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning all of that. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I'll be the first to tell you, hey, I didn't ask for all of this. I was lucky. I was very lucky. My grandfather started the company in 1964. The first product was our Margay gearbox, which so many people have heard the story of. My grandfather took my dad racing, and the chain kept coming off, which was a common problem back in that era. And my grandfather owned a USAC dirt midget at the time, which had a quick change rear end on it. And he said, but that's crazy. That's exactly what we need on a go-kart is a quick change gear drive system. And so he made one because that's the kind of guy that he was. And so the Margay gearbox came into being in '64. We started making some components for a company up in Wisconsin called King Kart. And King Kart was run by a bunch of really smart guys, the Fox family and Jim Dintisi and a bunch of other racers from up there. They ended up selling the company to my grandfather in 1968. So we started building chassis in '68. Our first chassis looked a lot like a King Kart because that's really what they were, with our gearbox on them, with all of our sort of suspension components at the time on them. The guys that sold King Kart, and this is where, you know, some of the bitterness that we were joking about earlier comes into play. The guys that sold King Kart to us went on to create a little company called Parts Unlimited, which, if you don't know, is a motorcycle parts and accessory distribution company that today does, like, I don't know, $1.5 billion.
Right, exactly. It's huge.
So, but we're still going. So,
right.
So 68, we started building chassis ourselves. 76, 77, we started building our own 2-cycle engine. So my 2-cycle roots go way back. When I was a kid in middle school and high school, I'd come down here on the weekends. I'd build my own LMR 100 engines. I'd put them on the dyno. I'd play with things. So we built our own engine for a number of years. That engine won the Long Beach Grand Prix twice with Scott Pruitt. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
We're restoring that kart for Scott now with 2 LMRs on it. So, you know, we did our own engine. We found out how difficult that was. So that didn't last forever. But there's been phases where our product has been really dominant. There's been phases where we've had to work a little bit harder to get back up on top. You know, it's sort of all cyclical. But we've seen a lot. I mean, we've seen almost everything come and go through the sport over the years. And we've weathered all the storms. We're still here. We're still going strong. We've still got a great group of people involved with our product. And this Ignite program has been really good for us. I think it's been good for karting too. So
that's where I look at that is, here's this iconic brand. And you guys have, like you said, you guys have kind of pivoted when you needed to, right? Bringing the engines in, building chassis. You said there's been ups and downs, challenges and successes. But it was like you guys were perfectly ready to make whatever change it was that needed to come into the sport when it needed to come in. And, you know, we go back to the start of the whole thing with the Briggs and the Ignite. We always, you know, use the term pressing the reset button. And just, yeah, and you and I always talk about lowering the barrier of entry, which is what you guys did. I remember when you first called me and said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to build a go-kart for less than $4,000. I'm like, wow, okay, show me. How many karts? Do you know what is the number now of how many Ignites have come out?
We should be right around 1,600, something like that.
Wow.
I don't know. That seems like a pretty strong number.
That's for a spec program like that. I think that's just tremendous for sure. Is there?
We tried. I'm sorry.
No, you go. Keep going.
We tried to do this. I tried to do this early on, maybe just before we met, or right about the time we met. And you may remember this. We worked with Yamaha to do the Tsunami. And we had the Tsunami 100 and we had the Tsunami 125. And again, it was all about low.
I remember it in the magazines.
Yeah, it was a national kart news, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was all about trying to lower the barriers, the entry barriers to the sport. Mm-hmm. And you bring up that term, and that's a really important term, I think, because there's not enough people working in karting and trying to lower those entry barriers. That's a big problem, getting new people into the sport. And that's what we're trying to do with Ignite. And that's what we tried to do all those years ago with Tsunami. I was really young. I was a whole lot, you know, when you're young, you're really smart, right?
Yeah.
And thought I had it all figured out and had a fantastic opportunity with Yamaha Motor Corporation in Kalinawasa. I mean, I was very lucky again to work with some really good people and have a great opportunity. And I was unable to make the most of it. I'll be the first to tell you that ultimately didn't succeed because I couldn't make it succeed. I didn't have the right tools. You know, I just didn't have the right vision for it. And we didn't have the resources to work with a company like Yamaha Motor Corporation. So, but the Tsunami was the first stab at it. And even before that, when we did the Puma cart, we did a Puma with a flathead Briggs on it as a package.
Yep.
That cart at the time sold for $2,000. But now we're getting back into like 1991, 92. That ship has kind of sailed. But I've always been a proponent of turnkey packages. Look, here's the deal. If you go out and want to buy a motorcycle, or if you go out and you want to buy, a Wave Runner or whatever, you don't walk into the dealership and there's a motorcycle frame sitting there with no engine in it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, how dumb would that be? If you want to get involved in karting and you're lucky enough to have a brick and mortar type of place around, or even a guy working out of his garage, you walk in and there's a go-kart sitting there with no engine on it. And in a lot of cases, no tires on it either. So the first thing you have to overcome when you're trying to get into the sport is, geez, I got to buy this thing. I got to put an engine on it. I got tires on it. What if I don't buy the right thing? What if I get the wrong stuff? It's so hard for people to get into it. It doesn't do any of us any good. So anything we can do to remove some of those barriers, make it easier for people to spend their money in karting. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's
we
it.
want more people racing go-karts. Simple.
And you and I talked from the very get-go about that too. When you guys came out with that price, it was under $4,000. And I remember commenting to you, the $39.95 is a great. That's awesome, and that's like the first layer of it. But the second layer of it was people were going to be able to buy used Ignites down the line, $2,500 or $2,000. I would not. My first go-kart was $1,700. If it was $100 more, I wouldn't be in the sport, and I wouldn't have done what I've done for 30 years and been lucky to do it. Right?
Yeah.
There's so many people out there. I think that if they didn't have that chance to buy a affordable used package, we would have lost them to something else. So that's again, there's so many layers of what you guys have brought to the sport, I think.
And that's what we've got here this weekend. We've got a lot of used product here. We've got, the prices are right on this stuff. There's a lot of used product this time of year out in the marketplace. And it's a great opportunity for people to get involved in karting, not only with the Ignite program, but if there's an Ignite kart, it's going to be more than competitive in any 206 class at your local track, and if you can get a great deal on one of those karts and get out on track wherever, East Lansing Speedway, East Lansing Kart Track, take advantage of it and get out there and go racing. Once you're in the seat and on the track, it's over. I mean, you're in, so we as an industry have to make it easier for people to get in the seat and get on the track.
Keith, 60 years for the Margay name, the brand, the company. You've been in it for 40 something. What's one of your highlights? We're talking history, right? Give me one of the highlights over the many, many years. I know we could sit and talk to you for an hour about you guys going over to try the World Championships with Margay and Doug Henline and that whole program. Yeah. But is that one of the highlights? Give me another highlight for the many years you guys have done this. The
whole Constructors Cup program, which you were heavily involved with. Yeah. I mean, that's not any one thing that was a highlight, but that program was a lot of really good people, and I still have the results sheet from, I think it was the second or third year in that series, and you can go through that list of drivers, and it is holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 30 kids out there running Formula A. Direct drive, 100cc. I mean, really, this package right here. And 15 of those 30 kids went on to have legit professional careers. Of course, Danica, Sam Hornish, Michael Valiente, Patrick Long. I mean, Patrick Long's already retired. I mean, Patrick had this amazing career with Porsche. And now he's a brand ambassador and driver coach and development guy.
But remember, he went strictly from WKA Constructors Championship on a CRG with SSC to factory CRG alongside Ryan Briscoe. That series was focused on so much that he ended up going to Europe and being a factory driver.
And that was the point of that series. Yeah. That was the genesis of that series. Doug Henline and Randy Kugler and Art and Rod Verlinger all got together and said, look, if we want young drivers here in the U.S. to go over and compete in Europe, we have to have the training ground here because it's so different in Europe compared to what we were doing in the States. So they created the series, and they did an outstanding job with it. So that was super cool. One other thing that kind of stands out, we were running WKA Manufacturers Cup, and we had won the Manufacturers Championship, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 years in a row in that deal. And this was probably man, I don't know, 2010, 2011, maybe 2009, maybe a little bit earlier. I can't, I'm really bad with dates. But we had beat, all those years, we had beat all the Italian teams. You know, one year it was Tony Kart, then it was CRG, and then it was Burrell, you know, and like all those, you know, it was always the flavor of the year with a lot of the European brands. But we were the one consistent company that was always on top for a lot of those years. Back when Man Cup averaged, you know, 450 or 500 entries a race.
Yeah.
And worked with a lot of really great people there. And the last year that we really competed for that championship, it was us and Burrell going back and forth for the manufacturers championship. And so above those trophies there are all of our manufacturers championship trophies.
Yep.
And so it came down to the last race, which was at Newcastle, and it came down to the last race on the last day, the last race of the season at Newcastle. Whoever won that race was going to win the championship for the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And Burrell had flown engines over and mechanics and, you know, typical Italian deal, right? And we've got our little mom and pop operation here in the U.S. And it was a real team effort between a lot of different people. But the class was ICA, and it came down to Brandon Atkins and I think it was Mike Geeson. And whoever won that race would settle the manufacturers championship. And I was a wreck, man. I was super nervous. I had so many good people. That was one of the really cool things. Like, I honestly didn't have anything to do with it. I kind of put the people together and then I just get out of their way. And we had Sean Cook tuning that thing.
Yep.
And Sean is a wizard. He's really good. And Brandon driving. And of course, Brandon was really special behind the wheel. And just a bunch of other people kind of helping out. Anyway, it came down to the last lap. And Brandon pulled it out. And Brandon won that deal. And that won us the championship for, again, I think like the 7th, 8th, or 9th year in a row, whatever it was. And it was just like, oh, man, I don't need to do that again.
That's funny you say that, 'cause the question I was going to ask you, like all that success, top level success, you guys are focused on the spec program now. Do you ever have that inkling again to potentially put together a package or something to try to go Scoozer racing, USPKS, Stars, whatever it is?
Yeah, of course you do, right? I mean, because you always want to compete at the top level. And I really love that type of racing. I mean, I
know you do.
I love the high-end two-cycle stuff. You know, I mean, admittedly, I'm not much of a shifter guy, but just a pure go-kart. 100cc. I mean, if we could race 100cc direct drive karts all day long, man, that'd be fine with me. But I'd like to think, too, that I'm just practical, right? And that's one of the reasons that we've been here for 60 years. I mean, to compete, like you're saying, whether it's Stars, Scoozer, or whatever, the tip of the pyramid, you know, it's a relatively small number of competitors.
Yeah.
And you've got, I don't know, 20 different brands of chassis vying for the sales in that very small market. So you have to do a lot of development, which I feel like we're capable of doing. We've done that in the past, and we've shown that we can do that. And we've shown that we've won those races. We've won those championships. But it's the market to sell that product to is so small. I mean, you know, even if you go out there and dominate the Super Nationals, you know, we're not going to start selling chassis in Europe. And maybe it nets us a few more sales here in the US, but it comes at great cost and great effort.
Yeah. What's the ROI?
But yeah, and I would rather channel that cost and effort into trying to bring more people into the sport.
Yeah, like you said earlier, you'd almost have to have the right people to kind of go with it, and you kind of like, okay, you're kind of like the Rick Hendrick, sit back, let them do the work, and then take the glory when they do it all.
I don't know. It's not really that. I don't know if it would go like that, but
Rob does. I mean,
yeah, but it's I miss it. I would like to do that, and certainly this is a way for us to kind of get back in that world. But I tell you what, I really enjoy working with the type of people that we work with in the Ignite program, the type of racers at the base of the pyramid. You know, everything, as we said, the further you go up the pyramid, the more challenging things get. One of those things, as you go up that pyramid, it's more challenging to work with people, you know,
yeah,
and
stress. Yeah.
And it's just honestly, it's not as much fun.
I was gonna say the pure joy isn't at the top level. It's such.
I don't think
we
so.
watch parents, people scream and yell at each other. The
Oh,
pure joy of the sport is at the grassroots.
Down here, it's on the base. It's at the foundation.
Yeah.
You know, and some of these races that I've seen at our track here at Gateway, you know, where we've got 35 guys out in Ignite Senior, the racing's every bit as good and tough and difficult to win as anything you would see at the Super Nationals, you know? So the racing's really amazing. The people are just as amazing, you know, and everybody's hanging out at the end of the day, you know? I mean, sure, there's some occasional sniping and stuff like that. It's racing. But generally speaking, I just like where we're at, you know, and again, let's take that cost and effort and focus on growing the sport that we all love.
That's
you know?
Yeah, that's what you guys are doing that, which is great.
You know, and if people move on from us and they, you know, we've steered people into different programs, you know, I mean, call Mike Rollison. That's my standard answer to a lot of people. You want to go do that? Call Mike Rollison. Who also
former Margay driver,
former Margay driver, won some big races for us, and just an all-around good guy. So, you know, if you want to go race up there, call Mike Rollison. But if you want to race down here, take a look at our programs, take a look at the people we work with, take a look at the tracks we work with, and take a look at the product. This go-kart is so cool. I'm head over heels. It's like, I don't know if I can do this, but
he's gonna do it.
It does look good.
The red and the black, I don't know.
Hey, listen, Keith, let's put a wrap on this. We get the thing back in spot. 60 years for Margay. I like the sound of 100. Maybe we can get to 100 years. I don't know if you'll be able to 100 years or not. Let's just say long term. Do you have is there anything long to cap this show off? Is there anything you have long term? I know that the Ignite 100 is going to be something you're going to focus on for the next, obviously, half dozen years. Get that to where the Ignite Briggs is right now. But is there anything on the long term, or is it just continue to focus on kind of the ideology you have about supporting the grassroots level of the sport?
There is. I'm glad you brought that up. There is. I'm not super ready to talk about it, but it's. I kind of mentioned earlier that I'm not a big shifter kart guy, right? Because I think we've seen shifter karts. We've lost a lot of people in the sport due to shifter karts because, again, the guy says, "Well, I drove a 125, rode a 125 dirt bike, and it wasn't too fast for me, so I want to start in karting on a 125 shifter." I mean, I don't care what your story is. That's just dumb. Don't do it. You know, and there's people that are more articulate about it and will tell you why you should do this or that. Just don't do it. You're not going to have any fun. You're going to get lapped. You're going to get embarrassed in front of your girlfriend or kids or whoever you bring to the track. So just don't do it. Start in something practical. But the reason that you shouldn't do that is because it's really, really hard to drive one of today's shifter karts. Really hard. And there's a very small number of people that can do a really good job at it. And everybody else is just out there riding around looking silly. So it's super cool stuff, but it's not for the masses.
Yeah.
It's the tip of the pyramid. And if there was something that you could shift, but was more accessible to the masses, and that a bunch of old guys like us could get in and drive and not be falling out of the seat in 2 laps, but you can go out and you can shift and you can think about what you're doing. That really interests me. And
it sounds like a future podcast.
I think that, we get a lot of phone calls every day. Not every day, but we get phone calls all the time. People saying, "Hey, do you guys build shifter karts?" Or when I get introduced to somebody as a go-kart guy, they say, "Oh, you build shifter karts?" And I just say no, and I don't even bother trying to explain why. But it is something that interests me if the package was right. And if it was something, again, that those people that call and they want a shifter kart, and when you tell them, no, you don't want one, I want to be able to tell them, yes, you do want one, and this is the one you want.
Understood. Yeah.
This is the one that you can go out and drive today, not something with a power band that looks like that. It might make 86 horsepower or whatever, but it makes it for about 200 RPM, and you got to constantly be in this little bitty, I mean, you guys know the story, but so that really interests me, and much bigger scale, and then I'll zip it but much bigger scale.
All right, so let's wrap it up then. Let's do a synopsis. You got one more thing?
One more thing here. I think this is important.
All right.
Our industry is limited by the number of facilities that we have where we can compete with our products, right? It's not like a dirt bike or a quad or a wave runner where you can go to the woods or your buddy's lot or the lake or whatever. You've got all those places, all those different venues where you can use those products. With karting, with racing karts, you got to have a proper racetrack. And there's not enough attention being paid to the lack of proper racetracks in this country. A lot of the tracks that we go to have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's very few new tracks being built. And I think someone has to come up with the formula to show that it makes financial sense to build new facilities. And it's almost like you have to develop a business in a box program.
Yeah.
Here's the template, and you have to prove it out. You don't need 86 acres or 30 acres or whatever. Here's a small footprint formula where you can go into an area that's underdeveloped or whatever, and on 10 acres or 8 acres, you can put in a really nice local, regional level karting facility, nice little shop area, some garages where people can store their product. And you got to have rental carts. The only way new kart tracks make sense is if you're running rental carts. So that's something that long-term, big picture, someone needs to figure out. If I can work on that somehow and facilitate that, I'd love to do it.
I think you already have it figured out. We just need the catalyst. We need, it so happens you work with ACUS. Gee, that would be a great connection there, and working with these major motorsports promoters, and because again, karting is the base, the foundation of motorsports as a whole. And so when you put the NASCAR, the IMSA, the IndyCar, this is a whole nother podcast. But yes, I agree 100% with you, Keith.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so let's wrap things up. This weekend, 9 till 2?
9 till 2 Saturday here. Come have a brat and a beer with me and the rest of the team here. It'll be fun.
And if you haven't been to Margay, just go to Margay. Like I remember, like the first time when you and I first did Quincy in the park, I flew into St. Louis. I couldn't believe I'm walking into the shop. It was awesome to just be there first and foremost. So yeah, that's 9 till 2 this weekend. The Ignite 100 is something that's obviously folks coming to the playground. It's been rolling at Gateway, Kartplex, but watch for it and how it develops through 2024. We'll make sure that we do something about that. We got to do it. What we need to do is a test drive and get out there. So definitely got to put together. And
real quick question.
Go, Dave. Oh,
who does your graphic kits? Somebody was asking.
Oh, there you go.
We do them in-house. Zach Buchanan does a lot of that. We've always sort of basically done them in-house. And one more thing on Zach's plate. So yeah, if you want custom graphics and if you really want to wear them out, call Zach tomorrow morning and say, hey, I want custom graphics. But
we will do a quick little celebrity hello shout out. Greg Dingus in the house.
Greg Dingus is another guy that was involved with all these graphics as well. And I have to say, I'm not trying to suck up to Greg or anything, but Greg was absolutely instrumental in making Ignite what it was. That was what you talked about. You asked about anything I really remember, any sort of high points in my career or whatever with Margay over the last 40 years. But developing the Ignite program and the way we did it and the way we worked together and the way we had conversations and the way we went back and forth and not necessarily always agreed, but still worked through everything to come up with this final program and final product. It was Greg and I and Jeff Vansel as well here at the time. And it was a lot of fun working with those guys. And it was really cool to see what we came up with. And I can't say enough about Greg and his input into the whole program. And
Greg's obviously gone on, as we know now, to become one of the leading videographers and social media guys in the sport. Does a tremendous job of the work he does as well. So, yeah, no doubt about it. And so let's just cap things off with this. Last but not least, congratulations on 60 years. Let's see if we can do 60 more. But again, congratulations, Keith. Hang out in the back of the studio. We'll chat with you afterwards. But otherwise, we'll let you go. Thanks for taking the time out tonight, bud.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
David Cole, there you have it, right? Listen, there are brands that have come and gone in this sport. You know, we mentioned some of the ones that have been around before. You mentioned the guys like the Bugs, the whatever, maybe the Invaders that are still here, obviously with a third generation guy, and you look at things like Emic and Track Magic, whatever it may be. Margay has stood the test of time, bottom line.
It has, and like he says, they've evolved with the sport, like it's crazy to think that they used to manufacture their own engines. That's,
Right.
that's the, you ask anybody here today, they're thinking like, manufacture your own engine. What are you talking about? I just go to Italy and order, or I go somewhere else and get it. So that's the unique side of it, and all the different things they've done over the 60 years. And again, just finding and evolving with the sport and finding a way to stay relevant, but also to, like you said, continue to be a brand that people recognize.
That sprint, dirt karts, road race, right? You name it, right?
Yeah.
And again, always great to talk to Keith. So much going on there. We talk a lot there about the importance of the grassroots level of the sport. And you can hear, Keith, that there are thoughts, hey man, I'd love to be able to go do this, but the focus still, and their kind of ideology now, their focus is on making sure that there are people there still that are committed to the grassroots level, the foundation of the sport. And that's really what the Ignite program's become. It's helped support the 206 program. The karts are out there. They're running on tracks and clubs all around the country, whether it's a straight Ignite program, David, or some of them just, they end up getting sold and they're racing at some other club in Arizona or California or Oregon, wherever it may be, right? So again, over 1,600 go-karts, just Ignite karts being made over the last number of years. They've done such a great job in kind of rebuilding that level of our sport.
Yeah, who knows how many they've done over 60 years. I mean, that's just a lot, including road racing, dirt. They used to do the dirt stuff as well. Yeah. So a lot of different forms, a lot of that. And and like you said, it's, he said ma and pop store. You think about it, when they were winning those manufacturer cup constructors championships, it wasn't they had the Big Ten. It was all racers who had their own deals going on, and they just brought parts and extra this and extra that. And then mentored, chassis changes here and this and that. And so it wasn't the big teams that you're used to seeing today at that top level. It was all, like you said, father and sons, or fathers and daughters, or full families, all parking out of their 10-foot trailer or the back of the pickup or this and that. So that was the foundation, and it still is with Margay.
It's always for me for us to be able to have Keith on the show from Margay. It's always a special time. Obviously, he was there when I first kind of broke in as a journalist back in the mid '90s, and struck up a really good friendship early on. It's always great to talk to him and see what they've done. Anytime, David, you and I get a chance to drive a Margay, we're going to jump at it, right? If we get a chance to run an Ignite, we're doing it. So I would tell anybody, if you've never done it, do it. Make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen. Like I said, I did Rock Island, did 3 categories. Was excited to get back behind the wheel of a Margay. It'd been a couple of years. And I'm really looking forward to trying out the Ignite 100.
The other one I'm looking at is maybe next year, David. I know that's a big year for you and your family up at Daytona. We should probably go run at Daytona next year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a given. I'm going to, if I have to, send email every single day of the week, that'll be one.
Fill people. Well, let's cap it up. Fill people in. Why is it so important for your family, Daytona next year?
Well, I can't even do the math right now because I'm still at 90. So my dad started in 74. So 2024 will be 50 years. So that's going to be his final season racing. So not this Daytona, but next Daytona will be the final race that he wants to do. So we'll of course do road racing stuff, but maybe we'll try and get over to do the sprint track as well.
Shout out to Bob Cole, still racing 50 years. That's absolutely fantastic. Folks, thank you so much for joining us in this edition of Face to Face. Lots more to come. As we say, every time we have a show, a topic will come up. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
We write it down. And it's going to start happening through this off season. Lots going to happen still this month. And then, of course, January and February before things really start getting fired up for 2024. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We do appreciate it. On behalf of David Cole, my name is Rob Howden. Bye for now.